Oh, okay, sure. So Jason Fitzgerald over the cap did a little write-up about Kirk Cousins' situation as well as options for the Vikings. So he started off talking about the ramifications of the 2022 fully guaranteed 35 million bucks if Cousins is on the Vikings rooster on the third day of the new league year in 2021. It's something we talked about ad nauseum. Blah blah blah. So the Vikings either have to poop or get off the pot. So Cousins will either be on this team 0 more years or 2 more years. It's not going to happen where it's just 1 more year, right? And then also he talks about how the Cousins extension did free up some cap for the Vikings in 2020. Now, the juice certainly was not worth the squeeze, as the Vikings are in a bind of what they can do with Cousins in the future. Then Jason got into trade. So this is where it gets interesting. Quote, trade is a more viable option. In a trade, the guarantee travels from Minnesota to the acquiring team, so the dead money is just $20 million. That's a proration of Cousins' signing bonus. Cousins' $21 million salary, blah, 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 taken on by the team trading for him, blah, blah, blah. 2022 guarantee of $35 million could be problematic, as they require a team to be pretty bullish on Cousins, but also possibility of reworking that contract to make it easier for another team does make a lot of sense. So I think there could be some compromise there. And they listed off some teams could include Colts, the Bears, as well as the 49ers, who, we've connected the dots for because Kyle Shanahan is a big fan of Kirk Cousins. Also, the Broncos. The Broncos were initially in the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes before they eventually signed Case Keenum, but they weren't a finalist. It came down to the Jets and the Vikings. So that's certainly interesting. I hadn't really thought about the Bears. Now, would the Vikings trade Cousins in division? Man, they might. But also, with the Colts and the Bears, it's possible that they could be in the back end of the first round. So they could be out of reach of some of the more top-tier quarterbacks in this draft, which would be fine. I'm certainly okay with that. And I would not worry about Cousins being traded in division. I wouldn't be, because especially if Matt Nagy remains the head coach of the Bears, which I think TBD, and his supposed kick-ass offense who can't average more than 20 points a game. Okay. Okay, sure. And then he got into an interesting route, which would be the Brock Osweiler route. The next out would be to force themselves apart with a high draft pick in return for someone taking on the salary. The Jets, Jaguars, and perhaps Patriots would be the teams that would be in a position to do it next year. The Vikings, who would also be leaving themselves without a quarterback in such a trade, may be able to get the Jets or Jaguars' young QBs as part of the trade if either of those teams winds up with the first pick in the draft. Given the guarantee at play, I think it would require including a first-round pick. So this would be basically trading Cousins to one of those teams and giving up higher draft capital than you would be receiving back, if any, basically as just a salary dump. Now, precedent was set with the Brock Osweiler trade from Houston to Cleveland, and then the Browns basically just benched Osweiler and then ate his contract. It's fine. But also, I do wonder if the league would allow this. Essentially trading draft picks for salary cap. It's very interesting. It'd be cool if the Vikings went down that route. But with the Jets, you could trade for Sam Darnold, who they're giving up on. They'll probably draft Trevor Lawrence, and then they'll just have Lawrence on his rookie deal, the massive Kirk Cousins contract for a year, or maybe they'll just cut him and then just eat the salary cap hit. It's whatever. Maybe you can find a spot where the Vikings swap out their first-round pick up the Jets' second-rounder, or maybe that's wishful thinking. Or how about Quinnen Williams, since apparently he's on the trade block as well. Same thing with Jacksonville. Maybe the Jaguars give up on Gardner Minshew. They still draft a quarterback high. They take on the Kirk Cousins contract. They have all the cap space in the world to be able to do that. And then the Vikings send their first-round pick in exchange for the Jaguars' second or even third. So now, I think this is obviously the least appealing option because the Vikings, yes, you would get Darnold, but then you'd have to potentially wait until day 2 to peruse the wares of finding a future potential franchise quarterback. And also, if the Vikings' first-round pick is high enough, they could get into that sweet section of the top 3, top 5 quarterbacks in this draft. Same thing with Minshew. And I'm much more cooler on Minshew. Like, it's fun watching Minshew play. You do love the stash of Minshew mania, but Darnold is still the superior quarterback prospect, Bob. And then Jason gets into, straight up cutting Cousins, who, we've talked about that before. If trade is not an option, they decide they want to eat the cost and move on. There's probably only one path. What the Vikings would have to do in this case is designate Cousins as the post-June 1st cut at the start of free agency. That would allow them to keep Cousins on the books for $31 million dead for the entire 21 season and defer $10 million in 2022. So we talked about that option as well. That way the Vikings wouldn't have to eat all $41 million dead on the 2021 books when they potentially could be stretched thin. But also, I think the Vikings, as of right now, they gained $5 million from Yannick, potentially could gain 6.7 if they trade Anthony Harris. I think they are starting to save up and budget for potentially having that option of cutting Kirk Cousins. So I think that all options could be on the table. Straight up cutting him is one, as well as trading him for actual value would be another, as well as the full nuclear Brock Osweiler option of trading him plus draft capital just to get him off the books. That last one is obviously the least appetizing for me, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Because like we said, Kirk is either going to be on the Vikings for 0 years or 2 years. It won't be just for one. So we'll see what happens. But your thoughts, Jason Fitzgerald over the cap talking about the Kirk Cousins contract. Let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support that work? Post some in the Venmo. But until next time, Skol, production value.